but they do expect self-compliance with that. And how do financial institutions provide that self-compliance? Like, I know there are regional payment associations. I know they have internal audit that knows these rules. And talk a little bit about that.
A lot of it is, you've got to have the tools and resource to manage to that self-compliance. So whether that's, you've got a BI team that's doing something, you've got your ops team, you've got your treasury management team, you've got some sort of automated way to put all of this compliance stuff together. You've got to have that in some form or fashion. The NACHA and the auditors do not dictate how you have to do all of that. You just have to have it. And that's kind of going back to what I said earlier about, like, even with the NACHA rule book, it gives guidance, but it doesn't give specifics. So a lot of it's open to interpretation of how the FI wants to manage to this stuff, what their risk appetite is, what their risk tolerance is. As long as they're doing something to mitigate, to it, then when the auditors come in, they're like, I don't care what you give me, if it's, on a spreadsheet, if it's on, a PowerPoint, whatever. They just want to see that you're actively monitoring to this compliance and this risk management.
And what is it fair to say? As I understand it, there are roughly 9,000 financial institutions, including credit unions and community banks in that total. It's down from 15,000 a number of years ago, but it's still a pretty significant number. There's been some consolidation, but there's still a lot. And I think it's probably fair to say that based on our experience, many of these FIs, if not most, are really not aware of their requirements in this area. And that, it's interesting. We'll talk about this too a little bit later, but many of these FIs, that they do more received ACHs than originating. And they historically have really not invested or needed to invest or not had those audits or reviews around how they monitor activity, how they document who's doing what, ensuring that the originators are not involved in any nefarious activity, regulating good payments, bad payments, preventing fraudulent transactions, preventing credit type frauds within the receiving FI. That's changing, right? Because NACHA realized that and has promulgated a set of requirements beginning next year for receiving financial institutions to begin to track and monitor. And so all of this manifests itself both on the ODFI side, the originating financial institution, and the RDFI receiving, in a program that has to exist where certain things are undertaken on a regular basis. For example, originator reviews. There are certain policies in place for dealing with things that have to be documented, but then there's also another set of documentation that's required around here's what we've actually seen when we've tracked, right? And the financial institutions that come to us are often the ones that either didn't put enough resources in there, have grown a lot, and have not been able to scale their ability to do that tracking, and then have gone through an audit or a review and either had a finding that they have to remedy or even a penalty put on them by a regulator for not being sort of more in control of that. Is that fair to say, Scott? I know you've seen a lot of our clients come to us over the years.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. I would say it's a little bit less about that they aren't aware of the rules. Often you'll find there's, someone who holds all the tribal knowledge. That person knows all of the rules and they're pivotal to the whole organization, and they're struggling to scale because you can't rely on a single person to be the source of all knowledge, or that person, God forbid, one day would like to retire. Mm-hmm. And if they were to leave, that your entire program goes with them. So really it's not about a lack of knowledge, but a lack of ability to effectively apply that knowledge. They just, they have a spreadsheet somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's really where they're struggling.
And that challenge to create that reporting and maintain that. And there's also an interest, many of our clients, their boards or executive management is very interested in this activity. And then, as we'll talk about, they understand it's a very substantial area of risk, like executing debit transactions for your clients carries a great deal of economic risk associated with it. And not just in terms of maintaining the unauthorized rates and the other requirements, but just the potential for loss of principal by giving a client, one of your banking clients, credit to their funds, and then those transactions come back as unauthorized later, and you're not able to recoup those funds, right? There's an economic loss associated with it. There's a great so the financial institutions that find that very important, there's a lot of reporting that has to be compiled. There's a lot of spreadsheets. There's a lot of ad hoc database queries, and this is very sensitive data. So there's a risk associated with doing all that in an unmanaged way. And we really specialize in two things. The second piece is really getting the data organized and into reporting.